Greetings YouTube! This is the demo for Stellar Blade from Korean developer Shift Up. I've already heard about this, but I wanted to see it for myself, and besides which, the demo's free! What's not to like? Now, as usual, I went into the settings screen first. I immediately noticed you can customize Eve's ponytail length. Joy! Okay, it's not a huge deal, but it's nice to have options, isn't it? I invert the vertical axis as always. I set the game to performance mode because screw ray tracing, and begin at normal difficulty because who wants an easy time? The opening is big on spectacle. Colony ships enter Earth orbit and are immediately met with a barrage of fire from the occupying aliens. Some drop pods are successfully deployed and some of those actually make it to the ground. What follows that is a big push towards the target by the troops. In the time-honoured tradition of on-screen prompts, you're then instructed how to attack and how to block. Once you get to the top of the hill, you encounter your first boss, the Brute. Now, it's at this point I started to have a bit of an issue, fairly early on, I know. By default, the game locks on to enemies you hit. But locking on reduces your movement speed to walking pace. No idea why, but it's annoying, so I turned the auto lock off as well. Now, I played the demo through twice. My first attempt I kept my distance and let my partner engage a lot of the time. The second attempt, however, I decided to get stuck in a bit, and because of his oversized wrecking balls for hands, I had a really hard time figuring out when to block exactly, and I got hit a lot. Fortunately for me, this guy isn't that dangerous. So we bring down the Brute, and then the real target appears, the Alpha. Things don't go well. Fast forward suddenly, because the game feels the need to keep what happens next a secret. For about 10 more minutes of game time. No, I don't understand why it did that either. You land in a dropship and enter the game proper. Now, the first thing that I encounter, a payphone. It's used for fast travel, apparently. I decide to check the menu to see what there is on offer, so there will be quite an array of outfits to collect in the game, all free. No premium bullshit for once. You start with the planet diving suits. Your outfits come with a built-in shield that mitigates damage, at least for as long as the shield holds out. You can, however, unequip the diving suit to obtain the skin suit. Woo! Yeah, one small problem, the skin suit doesn't have a shield. Prepare to have your ass handed to you if you use it. Anyway, I then have trouble picking things up. I mean items, picking up items. Not something I expected to have an issue with. Collecting items is usually easy in games. One fight later and the game deems me worthy to know that R2 picks things up. That seems like too much hard work to me, so I turn on auto loot. Do you know, thinking about it, there's quite a few options I had to tweak for this demo to make it more comfortable for myself. I find an access code, at least I think it's an access code. I enter the code on the door panel, which you have to do manually. And the correct code can be made to appear on the panel, but you still have to type it in yourself. And you have to keep pressing for a hint because it vanishes after a few seconds. Again, I feel like this is unnecessary. Can't I just press a button and fill it in automatically? I mean, I suppose if the codes stay the same from one playthrough to the next, it might be of interest to speedrunners, maybe? I suppose. Anyway, I rest at a camp. Resting restores health and enemies, a la every Dark Souls games you've ever played. The camp also allows you to buy new skills, and it even comes with a built-in training mode to try out your new moves. I ran through all the basic combos quite a few times to get a better grip on the basics, but it seems you can practice most, if not all of them, in a safe, dismemberment-free environment. Now, after a bit of platforming and a few fights, you're told about balance. Now, an enemy's balance are those little dots beneath the health bar perfect parries deplete the bar. Deplete the balance gauge, should I say, making them vulnerable to a high damage finisher. Now there's a weird tentacle thingy that attacks you if you go down this alley, and it can turn invisible. But as the guide says, don't panic, scanning reveals its position. And of course no Souls game would be complete without an ambush or two. Wow, this ambush is really hard to avoid. He hits you so fast it's almost unreasonable. Even when you know he's there, it's hard to counter. And then there's a different kind of ambush. It's telegraphed by a cutscene, but it is a large swarm. Now the first time I played this swarm, I detonated the barrels as instructed. The second time I eschewed the barrels and fought them directly. And I'm pretty sure I came up against an invisible wall trying to run away behind them. I certainly can't see anything blocking me here. And to be clear, I slightly mind being penned in. I mind a lot not being able to see where the boundary is. Now, this fight is also useful for reminding the player that this is a Souls game, not Devil May Cry. Button mashing will only get you so far. You need to be attentive and defend when needed. Admittedly, it's hard in this dark alleyway, but at least the little sods glow when they're about to attack. Something else worth pointing out at this moment in time, fall damage is a thing. You can die if you drop from too great a height. You've been warned. Unlike the game, which didn't bother warning me about this. There are some secret hidey holes that exist off the beaten track if you want to retrieve some extra goodies. Not that they're worth the effort in the demo, of course. Some contribute to your maximum health or energy if you retrieve enough of them, some are construction materials, but the demo either doesn't give you enough of them or doesn't let you put them to use. Still, all that climbing is good exercise, I suppose. Now, the library is your first encounter with a shield carrier, and, more importantly, a fatal attack. Why some games come up with their own terms for pre-existing things is beyond me. A fatal attack is an unblockable attack. Dodging is the only workable method here, and I am really shit at the timing of these things. Awful, truly awful. I eventually make it to a big camp, some rest, some upgrades, moving on to the big event. The rooftop boss, the big bad Abaddon. Yeah, okay, Abaddon isn't all that impressive. Still, on my first playthrough, it did take me 2 attempts to bring him down. He's not actually that hard. Watch his swords, block at the right time, etc. One thing I really like about the combat, which became apparent when I was fighting this guy, is that it uses a similar approach to Lies of P. The dodge is meant to be used with the right timing, but it doesn't have the range or the invulnerability window to get you out of the way of everything. You're supposed to rely on blocks and counter blocks. And this is even more obvious when you realise that locking onto an enemy slows your movement. It discourages you from putting distance between the two of you. Now, normally I would hate that kind of system, but most Souls games separate the block and counter buttons, meaning if you miss the counter you get hit. Here, block and counter are on the same button. It means if you press block too early, yes, you miss the counter, but keep holding the button and you still block. Then I realised that there was no stamina gauge to manage. I hadn't even noticed up until now. You can swing your sword wildly, you can sprint with wild abandon. The game won't stop you. The enemies might when they kill you for being reckless, but the game itself won't, which is great. All that means that it encourages you to stand your ground, fight cleverly, and you are rewarded for it. You don't have to back off if you're good enough. Indeed, Abaddon himself backed off on several occasions, something you won't see many Souls bosses do. And when you finally dropped him, you're treated to a rapid-fire series of clips with other upcoming parts of the full game. We get a look at some enemy types, some combat, some outfits, some locations, an arm cannon, and what I can only assume to be the game plugging for a crossover with Sonic at some point. And it all ends with Eve making a bad 'un look like even more of a chump than he already was when I was doing him. And then a shameless link for pre-ordering the game, because why not? And then, because it's not over yet, the game announces you've unlocked Boss Rush Mode, which only has one boss in it and it's not a bad 'un. Oh God! Oh God! The Stalker, as it's called, is way fucking harder than a bad 'un. Oh! This guy took me 40 minutes and 9 attempts to beat. That's more like a Souls boss. Now, in all honesty, most of his attacks weren't actually that hard to deal with, but guess what? He's a fan of launching unblockable attacks. What a shitter. Seriously, out of the 8 times he killed me, 6 of those times he either killed me directly with an unblockable, or did so much damage with one he may as well have killed me. It's worthy of note that this seems to be the only thing stopping me from dropping him though. Mind you, on attempt number 9, when we were both down to no health, when it mattered. Oh yes, that was good. And then the game asks, do you want to do that again? Fuck no. Oh, and there were a number of outfits just for this mode as well, I noticed. Racer's High, that's the red checkerboard outfit. Planet Diving Suit Second, the black outfit. And Wasteland Adventurer, which as far as I'm concerned is only missing the motorcycle helmet. And that's Stellar Blade, or at least the demo of it. It looks good, despite my reservations about the unblockable attacks. But they irritate me in every game they're in. The main game is apparently about 25 hours long, single player only, takes a mere 30 gigabytes of your hard drive, good, and wonder of wonders, won't charge for extra outfits. Not necessarily including any crossover content though. 30 outfits in the base game if you were wondering, apparently. Launches on the 26th of April.